Hi everyone, welcome back. In this lesson today, as promised, we're going to go through some of the postural concepts we covered in the last lesson with a partner. We're going to discuss what are some of the more common ways that posture influences our dance and how to work with that. Sarah is joining me today, as well as my cat, of course. What we're going to start with is talking about the leader's posture and what are some of the common ways that posture can influence our balance, but also what it does to the follower. So last time I talked about the three anchors that I think about in the spine, that the alignment of these particular spots has like a huge impact on your dance. So the first one was your sacrum. So for leaders, a very common misalignment for this area is to allow the pelvis to tuck under slightly, creating this kind of posture. And if I come into my embrace with the follower and my posture is slightly this way, what is going to happen is that a lot of times my legs are going to run into my follower. And so my follower might try to actually escape that, and they might exaggerate certain features to escape contact and create more problems down the line. So this feeling of the pelvis for the leader coming forward also will create instability on turns a lot of times, because the follower can end up in different positions that will offset the pelvis in the wrong way. And so a lot of times leaders will complain that in open embrace something can work really well and everything's fine and they're on balance, but in close embrace, once they start trying different things, it doesn't work. So watch out for this pelvic tilt for the leaders. The other extreme that can happen for leading is going to be in the chest. Some leaders emphasize this kind of pushing forward, and so what they end up doing is coming into the embrace and leading the follower around them in this kind of posture. It's not as intrusive perhaps as the other misalignment, but what can happen a lot as a follower, what I feel when I dance with the leader this way is that the leader becomes very brittle in the forward direction. Their axis is very unreliable. So I, as a follower, will have to do something to help them balance throughout the dance. And that can affect certain movements down the line. Again, in close embrace, the margin for error is so narrow that even a little bit of this forward motion can mess up your balance in different positions. Lastly, for leaders, the head forward, really pronounced effect can be felt for all followers. Even if the leader is much taller than the follower, the head forward a lot of times means that the upper spine is forward. And I want you to notice, if I do this, what Sarah is going to have to do. So if I start from a totally vertical position, and if I allow my head to come forward, and then we start dancing, notice how Sarah has to adapt to this misalignment, and she has to change her position. If I add to this something in my embrace, like some leaders will end up really hugging the follower around the ribs here, and I push my head forward, it ends up feeling very uncomfortable for the follower. And they might not even be aware of the discomfort until after the dance, because as followers, we're very much taught to adapt and to mold to the leader. So it might not feel like a lot of tension in the moment, but other times, followers can really feel that. And the head forward and the arm coming in and being too snug around is a very, very common complaint. Wouldn't you say that's one of the top? So you want to watch out for that. Now, for leading, what I would suggest, now that I've talked about the sort of common ways that the posture can suffer, what do you actually want to do? And I'm speaking specifically for close embrace, because in open embrace, you can get away with a lot of little mistakes and it's still going to work fine. But in close embrace, it becomes less likely. The technique for coming into close embrace, to me, is the same for following and leading. So in this case, I want you to think of it as a mutual reciprocal action, that it really does take two people doing the same thing for this kind of mechanic to emerge. And that is that we want to keep both of us, our spine, in the most neutral position possible when we come together, because we want to retain as much range of motion, as much available space to go into the body as possible. So I stay inside my body, my ribs are relaxed, my partner does the same. And then when we come together, the only thing that I'm going to first ask Sarah to do as we come together this close, we're slightly offset, so one of my feet is between her feet. All we're going to do is soften our knees, and we're just gently going to lean towards each other. And that lean will produce a little bit of this compression between us. And that's really it. That's all you're going to do in terms of how much you're going to come forward. What's important is that I still keep a little bit of my space between us, like around the belly button and a little bit higher than that. There's a little bit of space between us. And we're going to keep that space and protect it, because that is an indicator that the spine is still aligned in a neutral position. So when we take the embrace, we keep that relationship and we protect it as we walk. So as I'm walking, I'm thinking about, I'm staying inside my own alignment. I'm keeping my spine nice and neutral. My partner is doing the same 90% of the time. And then from time to time, we'll do something more extreme, but it's not going to be all the time. Most of the time, I just want to feel that we're very comfortable inside of our space here. The last thing I'll say about this is the most difficult, challenging places for posture you'll find is when you're having to dissociate. You're having to spiral around your partner. That's when the posture really becomes the most distorted and causes the most issues. So the image that I really want to leave you with today is that you want to imagine that the dome of your partner's ribs and yours is always wanting to wrap around. And so when I'm going around my partner here, I want to wrap around my partner and she wants to wrap around me. And the same thing happens if I lead her to go around me. She seeks to wrap around my ribs and keeping a lot of space around the spine and without straining. Now this wraparound feeling is very much has to do with dissociation technique. And I touched upon it last time, that when you're going around your partner for your posture to stay neutral, you want to make sure that you think about spiraling down as if you have an oar and you're in the boat and you're pushing yourself to propel yourself forward. So it's going to be very much of your the rib and the opposite hip coming together on your spiral, rather than that you're going to extend, okay? So in a visual, very visual sense, I want you to see what happens with my body when I do the two different versions. So if I have my chest a little bit too forward here, and I try to go around my partner, you'll see how I'm really struggling. I'm pushing myself away from them. I'm stepping further away from them. And at the same time, that's happening to my partner too. I'm also forcing that on her. So instead, I'm going to have that image that I'm going to wrap around, and my rib and opposite hip are going to draw towards each other. So I wrap around. And here I can go quite a bit further, and my partner can go with me. So I'll show from this side. Notice how she has a really easy time staying with me as I go around. And that can be on both sides. I'll feel that same possibility here. This is less common to do it, but the same idea applies. As I'm spiraling around her here, if we were to separate here, you notice that our spines are very much in that neutral position. So if we were to come up, this is very nice and neutral and relaxed. So all we do, step back, slight spiral, and the spine is still very much integrated. So that idea that the posture is something that's very dynamic, that you're protecting and developing throughout the dance. And with your partner, you're sort of creating this third kind of alignment between you two that really depends on both of you holding the integrity of your spine as you dance. So try out some of these principles, see what questions come up, and let me know in the comments. I'll be doing a separate tutorial on just dissociation. So if you have questions specifically to do with that topic, I would love to know them. And we'll see you next week.